Have you ever seen a student read a word problem, circle every number in there, underline most every word, and then just freeze? It's so frustrating because you know that they know the math, but it comes across as lack of effort, lack of motivation. And I don't think it's that at all. I think there's a thinking skill missing when we teach most solving word problems. And once you see that thinking skill, you can't unsee it. Hi, I'm Michelle, founder of Thinking Math Corner. With over 20 plus years of teaching experience in the public school classroom from grade primary through to grade 12, I've seen a lot. And I think that we need to start building thinkers in our classrooms through struggle, not memorization. You're going to want to stick around to the end of the video. I'm going to describe the thinking skill that's missing from most of our word problem lessons and give you an opportunity to learn more. First of all, on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being my students struggle with every single word problem every single time, all the way to 10, where my students excel at word problems every single time, no matter how they're worded. Put a link in the comments and let me know, where do your students fall on your teaching load this year? Here's the mismatch I see all of the time. We think our students are reading the situation, making sense of the context, deciding what strategies to use. But what students are actually doing is very different. They're actually scanning the text, looking for numbers, looking for keywords. They're trying to take the text and, as quickly as possible, move it into math symbols. In essence, they're not interpreting the word problem at all. They're translating the text. And these two things are not the same at all. The missing skill for most of our word problem lessons is the hidden skill that I call sense making before symbol making. It means helping and teaching students to make sense of the situation and context before turning it into math symbols. And most students were never taught how to do this. It's something we do automatically. And sometimes we don't even realize that our brain has processed that before we move right into the symbol making. So, what the students see first is the symbol making because they don't know what's happening behind the scenes. They've learned that word problems are puzzles to be solved where the goal is find the right operation, put it into symbols, solve it as quickly as possible. So when they see a word problem, their brain goes straight to what do I do with these numbers instead of what is actually happening here. In my classroom over the years, I've had oodles of experience with students and seeing where they come at. So when I show a word problem and I say, okay, so what are we thinking here? I would have a student go, it's adding because it says total. Or something like, well, we have all these numbers. We must have to multiply them because we're in the multiplication unit. They haven't stopped to read the word problem, understand the context, be able to picture and visualize what's happening. One of the things that I often do with students, especially when we're dealing with rounding, doesn't always follow rounding rules. If the next digit is 5 or above, we round up, and if it's not, we keep it the same. But what happens when we're dealing with the answer being the number of truckloads? Well, we're not going to be able to take 1/3 of a trip. Do we round down? Do we round up? What makes sense in the situation? Strong problem solvers do something subtle but super powerful. They hold quantities in relationship while they're making sense of the situation. The quantities are still there, they're important, but they're not what decides how the situation is dealt with. They're thinking more in terms of who has more? What's changing? Does someone have less? Who are they giving it to? How are they giving it to them? How is it all connected? Struggling students, on the other hand, view numbers as isolated objects. They don't see relationships between those numbers. They're numbers through which we do operations, adding, subtracting, multiplying, or dividing. They see the ingredients, and then they're trying to guess what the recipe is. The math is not actually in the numbers themselves. The math is in the relationship between those numbers. Now, this thinking math skill is not being skipped intentionally. Teachers don't just decide not to teach it. And it isn't because they're doing something wrong. These skills get skipped because we're feeling under pressure to move quickly. The curriculum doesn't focus on it or doesn't allow time to be able to properly treat it. And sometimes we've been taught that keywords are efficient and the strategy where students need to get to. At the end of the day, we end up modeling the finished math, not the beginning of the situation. This means that students see the finished product, the answer, but never actually see the process that goes into the sense making beforehand. So here's the big reframe: symbols are a compression of math meaning. If students have never worked with the meaning of the context, then symbols look like they appear at random. They come out of nowhere. They're just pulled out of thin air. But if you've made sense of the situation, you know what's going on, you know what's happening, how they're interconnected, then the symbols are a way of compressing that meaning, that sense making, into a symbol that students can deal with. It's why students can solve an equation that you've given them, but struggle to set up an equation from a word problem. If they try to jump to the compression part, they haven't had time to make the sense of what's happening and translate that into the symbols or compress it into the symbols. In essence, we're asking them to compress meaning that was never built. When students are allowed to make meaning first, a few things happen. They don't panic. They talk, they gesture, they draw. They make sense of what's happening. They start somewhere, even if it's messy. And suddenly, word problems stop feeling like traps and start feeling like problems that they're able to think through. One thing I hope you take away from this video is that math problems don't need better tricks. They need better thinking before we begin the math. This idea is the foundation of my Think Before You Solve Word Problems workshop and what we discuss there as we explore the underlying concepts of word problems. We unpack the beginning stages that we don't talk about, that hidden missing thinking skill. If you have any questions for the workshop, please post them in the comments below and I'll make sure to include them. This workshop is linked below in the description, and I encourage all teachers to sign up for it. Word problems are one of those tripping points that don't have to stop our students from engaging and loving math. Even if you take nothing else from this video, take this. If students can't make sense of the situation in the word problem, there's no strategy in the world that will save the math.